go. We are live, Michael. How are you doing today?
I'm doing much better, Martin. How are you doing today?
Much better because we are live. That's why, right? Like finally, finally.
Finally, finally. The anticipation was killing me
I know. You've been waiting for this moment for the entire day. I know.
the entire day. Well, not the entire day, but most of the day. Look, let's say hello to everybody and welcome them to AGTP Daily. We go live, Martin, every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to discuss the most important tech stories in the U.S. Today is Tuesday,
Yes.
the 26th of May, 2026. Let's get right to it. There's a bunch of stuff to get to. Uber COO says it's harder to justify AI spending. I really want to keep talking about this. We talked a little bit about this yesterday in the context of Microsoft and Anthropic. We'll follow up on that a little bit today too. And another topic that we haven't spoken about in a while, but IBM is finally spinning off their quantum chip foundry. So there's been some movement on the quantum side. And then later in the show, we will also be joined by Shani Fargun, VP of Healthcare at Stack AI, to explore how enterprise AI agents will help healthcare organizations automate administrative work safely, securely, and at scale. So another interesting show ahead of us. Let's talk about Uber's COO saying it's just getting harder to justify AI spending. And again, let me just start with a little bit of an intro here, if you don't mind.
Let's go.
And I want to couch this in these terms. I think, Martin, and if you disagree with me, you tell me. But I think you and I both, we completely believe that AI coding tools are useful. I don't think that's a controversial statement.
No.
And we also understand, right? I mean, we also understand that enterprise AI usage is becoming expensive, right? Because of the way they're changing these sort of fixed subscription numbers into these sort of metered ways of saying, like, you have to pay every time you use it, as opposed to it's kind of all you can eat at a certain price.
Yes.
And it's harder also to connect this directly to measurable business output. And I think that's one of the things that the COO and also the CFO, I believe, or the CTO, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was the CFO at Uber said back in April, and we'll get to that too. But I want to couch this in these terms. I think it's still really early days. I think that there's not enough, what's the word I'm looking for? I think the sample size is way too small. Right? Like this agentic AI stuff, whatever it is, just started, and the change in the plans have just started as well. So I think it's way too early to say it's too expensive, agentic AI is dead, and no one's ever going to use this because we have no way of measuring the ROI. Like, is that fair?
Yeah, for sure.
Are you laughing? Are you laughing at me, or are you laughing at the concept of like people going out there and going, we have no way of measuring it. We're just going to hire a bunch more people. We're never going to use agentic. Like, it just makes no sense, right?
That was very funny. I think the people who say that are the people who have never experienced agentic AI for themselves or for their company. Like, I mean, experienced firsthand, right? Like
firsthand, yeah.
I'm laughing because when I see the impact that agentic AI has had on our business, I'm like, there is no way we can go back, right? It's just like a completely new way of working. It's just like 10x absolutely everything that we do. And maybe we are early, right? Like maybe we are really early into this thing, and maybe not every company is able yet to enjoy this type of benefits, but they are real. They are absolutely real. And if we can enjoy it, I think a lot of other companies are doing this as well. And every company must be enjoying agentic AI at some point. Maybe they don't use it the right way, and like there's like this big thing where when you see all of these new possibilities thanks to agentic AI, you absolutely want to use them because you have this FOMO of like, okay, if my competitors use them and they use it better, I'm going to lose market shares and stuff like that. So you start to use them. And maybe they just rushed into it and they didn't really have a plan. And maybe now they're like, okay, wait a minute. We spent so much money on this.
Sorry, what are we doing again? Why are we doing this kind of thing? Yeah.
Why are we doing this again, right? So maybe they rushed into it by FOMO, and now they say, you know what? Maybe we need to scale these things down, but it's not going to go to zero. Impossible.
No, and let me give you a little bit more because I think this is actually kind of interesting. It'll give us a little more context. So the Uber COO, right, the Chief Operating Officer, Andrew McDonald, said the company is finding it, this is just the quote, right? The company is finding it harder to justify its AI spending because higher token consumption has not yet shown a clear proportional link to more useful consumer-facing features. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah.
Sure.
as you say,
But
like
like
you
in the
can.
first 6 months of Uber, it was just like a limousine company. So what would you say? Like, in the first, we're not really seeing a link between people using
Limousines.
limousines. So we're just going to shut down Uber because we feel like we have enough data points. Like it's the
Yeah.
silliest thing I've ever heard in my whole life. And he specifically referenced an internal discussion after Uber's CTO, this guy Praveen Nepali, right? Nepali Naga, reportedly said that Uber had already exhausted its 2026 Claude Code budget. This is what we talked about in April. Remember, Martin? So what the CFO is now figuring out like, this isn't working. Shut it all down. Is this his idea? It doesn't make any sense. But this is
No.
why I wanted to talk about it, because I
Yeah.
wanted to make the point that like there will be pundits out there who say, see, it doesn't work. And it's way more expensive than having a human. And it is, but you're right. I think the people that persist and the companies that persist, and there's a lot more stuff to talk about here, right? But the fact that they haven't found a link yet between like more features that Uber's going to offer and their implementation or deployment of agentic AI is just silliness. And to be fair, I can't even believe that somebody said that out loud
No, I agree.
where other people were listening. Sorry, go ahead.
And there is no way that the CTO of Uber is like, yeah, you know what, we burned all of this again, and that's fine. We can just stop, like, okay,
Yeah, never mind.
let's just go back, let's just go back. There is no way.
I
I
heard those
mean,
guys at Undercover Media burning a ton of tokens. Those guys are losers.
yeah, no, let's just go back to coding everything manually. Let's just remove all the AI. Like, there's no way, right? Like, at least you use
No,
cursor and you do code completion, and that's already a massive win, right? Like, even if you don't implement agentic AI that runs 24/7, right? So
right.
it's just like, it's just insane. I think that, yeah, this type of thing, it's really weird, because then why would they do that? Like, is there like an internal, like war, like we know with people who say, hey, we are spending too much on this thing, and the CFO is like, but do you really know what you are doing? And the CTO is like, absolutely not, but that's absolutely normal. We are learning the tech. We are testing everything. It's expensive, yeah, but it's going to get somewhere at some point. Like, I don't know. It's weird to me, but yeah, I think that makes absolutely no sense. There's no way they are doing right.
And the more I think about it, the funnier it sounds. Let me give you a little bit more detail, right? Apparently, Uber is still using AI aggressively. In its Q1 2026 prepared remarks, right, for its probably, quarterly conference call, Uber said, and I love these numbers. You'll see where I'm going with this in a second. But Uber said more than 10%. You ready? 10% of its production-ready code is now driven autonomously by AI coding agents.
Okay.
10%. So I just want to put that into context as well, because I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago, the team at Claude Code said that 60 to 70% of this stuff that gets written at Anthropic is written
Yes.
by AI coding agents. So the people that are writing the agentic code that allows Uber to write agentic code says that they're using 60 to 70% of their code is getting written by the agents. And Uber's like, we're done because we're already at 10%. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing just seems to be pretty funny. It's like, do they have any idea what they're doing? And here's the thing. We know, as we said at the beginning of this, right, that AI coding tools can increase developer throughput. We just know this, right, by a fact.
But like, massively increased.
But
developer
massively.
throughput. It's like, it's not just like a 10% or a 20% increase.
No.
It's like one guy can all of
No.
a sudden do maybe the job of like a 5%, 6%, maybe 10%, right? So it's like each developers who've been in Uber for a few years and who know the system, who know the guidelines, who know everything. Now he has a team of 10 people with him. It's so much valuable.
Every good engineer now has 10 people. But here's the thing.
It's so valuable.
Here's the thing. They implement this stuff without understanding like what a token costs, right? And I want to get back to this because even GitHub's, we talked about this last night, even GitHub was like, we're going to this metered thing. We're not going to stay with this all you can eat thing. But we made the point yesterday, and I want to make the same point for Uber as well. We made the point yesterday when Microsoft, they're canceling their Claude subscriptions for the most part. If you look at the small print, it's for the most part, right? But the point is that like they weren't just doing it to cut costs. Remember, we talked about this. They did it for strategic reasons as well, because they're still going to do agentic coding, but they're going to use their own tools.
Yes.
which also are not free.
Yeah.
So it's not like they made this big decision that says we're never going to do agentic AI coding anymore. They
Yep.
just
Yep.
said we're
Yep.
not going to use your tool to do it. We're
Yeah.
going to use our own tool to do it. So unless Uber starts building their own agentic AI coding tools, which is unlikely, what they're going to find out is after they reevaluate, this is my feeling, right? Is that after they reevaluate, and there's more stuff to talk about here, but after they reevaluate, they are going to figure out that, you know what, we actually need this. And as you said, Martin, it's like having every great developer now has 10 developers working with them.
Mhm.
And you'll just have to figure out what the cost is, because even Jensen Huang said, we're not firing engineers.
Mhm.
We're hiring more and more of them at scale because we're writing more code than we've ever written before. And because we're writing more code, we need more people to manage that code and to make sure that that code is right. We can't just write it and run it. Like, that makes no sense at all. Yeah.
But so that's the first part. But the second part is if you write more code and you get more work into your pipeline, then it just gives more work to every other department of the business as well, right?
Exactly.
Because now,
Exactly.
like, let's just like give the example of a one very simple situation where you use agents to actually find leads for your company, right? And so maybe before you had one guy who were finding, I don't know, 10 leads per week, for example, then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, if your agent can find 30, 40, 50, 100 leads per week, now you need to hire more people to actually do the sales, to actually do the customer support, to deliver the product just before the top of the funnel can actually have a huge increase in terms of throughput, right? So it's not only the developers or engineers that are going to be increased, that the number of them are going to be increased. It's like the entire business that needs to increase, because just the business gets much bigger thanks to the throughput of the agentic AI itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yep, and
I
that's
mean,
real.
this
I think that's real.
I think it's super. Look, this is the point we were making in a different context about Salesforce, right? If
Yes,
everything
yes.
is API available or exposed,
Mm.
and if it's all MCP compliant, well, now the software is not built to work just with humans. It's built to work with agents, and agents
Yep.
can use way more of the system
Yeah.
than a human ever could. And that means that people are going to just pay more
Mm-hmm.
and use it more, just like you said about Uber. I guess the real question though is like, this idea that they have the measurements that they have already, which I believe is way too small a sample size, just statistically, which I would raise in a meeting. So if we were sitting in a meeting and the COO said, we're not seeing any sort of valid reason to continue using artificial intelligence because we're not seeing any of it sort of drip down into the regular business, I would just be like, is the sample size even big enough? Just raise
Oh,
my hand.
actually, actually, maybe it was a different question. Is
Go ahead.
Uber a tech company? Is there that much new development needed into Uber to actually justify the extra spend in feature building? Maybe the app is good, and maybe we don't need to build that much more. That's enough. We are good, guys. We don't have much new ideas. We don't have much new things to build.
So famously, you may not know, but I was recently in a conversation with the CTO of Undercover Media,
Yes, maybe.
and
I
he was telling me that he feels like we're done.
exactly.
We built all the tech we need. Maybe Uber's in the same situation.
No, we just need one more. Once we finish this
Yeah,
one,
sorry, one more thing. One more thing, and then we're done.
exactly, and then we have all the tech we need, and so that's why maybe
We're done.
maybe
We're going to fire all of the
maybe
entire
that's
technical staff. We don't need any more development here.
nope. We have done everything we need. But like, I mean, really, like, what else needs to be done at Uber? Like, we don't use the app, right? So I don't know, but I don't think they have a lot of new markets to go into, or like a lot of new features that they can be. Like, it's not like a super exciting business from a tech standpoint, like from a potential tech growth standpoint in the next 5 years. There's not like a massive breakthrough that we can build. Like, not like, for example, Facebook, we can build like all of this AI, all of this smart glasses that they are doing. Like, they are building entirely new ecosystems, where that's not what Uber's doing right now. Like, they just book cars and that has been the same business since 15 years, right? So I don't know.
I don't know. It's making me sad that you don't think there's any other development to be done at Uber. Shut down all the computers. Shut down all the development
Yeah,
because the CTO
exactly.
at Undercover Media says they don't need to. Here's the thing, though. I think they can probably wring out a ton of efficiency. They can
Yeah.
optimize every last movement of the vehicle.
Mhm.
Frankly, if they're also getting into autonomous vehicles and autonomous driving and all this other stuff, there's a ton of sort of technology that needs to get built at Uber. And I think over time, here's the thing. You're right, Martin. I don't build my own agents,
Mhm.
but I do see the efficiencies that it brings
Yep.
us as a company,
And also you
right?
see
So
like
I don't do it myself. Sorry, go ahead.
also like you see also like the extra like the new work that you are doing as part of the team thanks to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
AI agents, right?
exactly,
Like it was like your
exactly.
work has totally changed since last year and now
Because
because
last year it changes every day because
exactly.
the new stuff is getting developed every single
Yeah,
day.
exactly.
Like all joking aside, inside of
Mm,
Undercover Media,
mm,
and because of that, the work that I do as a
yep,
result of that is changing relatively
exactly.
often, and it's way more efficient and it's way more
Mm-hmm.
effective, and it allows us to be way more prepared. And I can see the same stuff sort of if you think about the scale of Uber, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that different than the scale of Undercover Media in that sense. Like they should be able to wring. Don't laugh like that. They should be able to wring a ton of efficiencies out of it as well,
For
in the
sure.
same way that we are.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and maybe we should think about this too. But Uber probably has a much bigger sort of data analytics team than we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I would presume, right, because the big question that the COO is like, we don't know how to measure the efficacy,
Yep.
and we don't see it dropping down to the bottom line. And I guess the real question for me is, how should a company like Uber or even any other large enterprise kind of measure the ROI, I guess is the best thing to say,
Mm.
that the AI coding thing brings them?
Yeah. How
Do
they
you know
can
what I
do
mean?
that? Yeah.
Because they can't just say like, oh, we're writing more code, because who cares,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? It doesn't
Like
mean anything.
yeah.
But how should they measure it, right? I guess
Mm.
um, this is an interesting thing. So if think about this though, Martin, we as a firm can ship updates to what we do way faster. Like I'll never forget standing in the studio with you a few weeks ago, and I was like, "Can we just add this thing?" And you just went like, "Hey, can we just add this thing to the thing?" And I'm like, "Are you leaving yourself a voice note?" And you're like, "No, I'm telling you. Just give me a second, Michael. You're interrupting my conversation with the AI." You're like, "Can you just fix this thing and do that thing and take care of that thing?" And I'm like, "What are you doing?" Do you know what I mean? But like that, if you can measure somehow
Yeah.
the velocity of new products or new shipments like that, or just like how much faster you can review the code, or do you know what I mean? Or like any kind of bug frequency and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
is at least the beginning way to start measuring some ROI, right? And also any kind of product that's customer facing that you release,
Mm-hmm.
how much faster it gets released and what the revenue associated with that is that wasn't there before. Right. And
Yeah.
again, all the autonomous stuff that they're doing should fit into that at some level, no?
And on top of that, probably two other things. First of all,
Go ahead.
cutting costs. Like what can we replace? What can we rebuild? Who can we fire? Right? Like unfortunately, but
Yep.
if AI can do stuff, then that's a direct way to find ROI, right?
Yep.
Or expand into new markets, expand into new product lines, expand into new offerings. And now that you have AI, maybe AI can actually help you build these things, build these use cases, and then go expand into new things. And that's another way to actually have a pretty fast and clear way to measure ROI.
Yeah. But think about this too.
Mm.
It, I always love doing this to you, but like what year, don't look it up, but what year do you think Uber was founded?
Oh, 2005.
Close enough.
Okay.
2009. There
Okay.
was no iPhone until 2007, so it would have
Okay.
been hard
Okay.
to.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me do
That's a
some
good
simple
reference
math
point.
too.
That's a good
And in
reference point.
2005, you were 6 years old. No, I'm just kidding. So you wouldn't even have
Close
known.
enough. Though.
The only reason why I'm saying that is because there must be a ton of legacy code out there as well.
Yeah. True. 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 True.
And if that's
2009.
the case, 2009, well, what was it written in Ruby on Rails? Like, I don't even know, but like there must be some legacy code out there. And I presume that rewriting all that stuff and rewriting it into a modern tech stack alone could give excuse me, the agentic AI coding stuff, enough work to do for a while, right?
Actually, I I'm thinking about something like, is
Go ahead.
Uber in the same situation as Shopify? We always go
Yeah,
back to
I was gonna that was gonna be my next question, but go ahead and tell me why you
we
think so, because
always
I
go
think the
back
point you made last night was actually really good. Go ahead.
yeah, we always go back to Shopify, but is Uber is it's that same situation, meaning they don't have their own data centers. And this is a problem now. This is a problem. And maybe they are just not big enough to be able to very like to do something really really big into the AI space. They don't build their own model. They don't have data centers. They have this distribution, sure, but they can't do really anything with that. Maybe they are in the same position actually.
I'm just trying to think, 'cause I'm trying to work this out in the same way
Yeah.
that we worked out the thing about Shopify last night.
Yes. I'm trying to check
Well,
with
if you think
the
about how much money that Uber probably spends on just paying people to use their own AI and also to use their own data centers, it's weird, right? Because
it's
Uber's
huge.
been big for a long time.
Yep.
And in other parts of the world, they probably, I think they also own other brands, whether they've rebranded them or folded them into the Uber brand
Yes.
or just left them as a local brand. There's still a lot of, I think there's still a lot of room for them to own their own data centers as well, because they must do a ton of processing. And here's the other thing where this stuff could come in super handy. I don't disagree with you. I think at some level, maybe they are in the same spaces, but let's do this too. Because remember
So
last night? Do you remember
yeah.
what Shopify's total revenue was?
So so while you look at that, I've just found that Uber lost 17.5% of their value in the last 6 months. 17.5, where Shopify was down with like 40%, right? So it's huge.
Mm.
So this is like massive, massive loss for these companies. And my analysis of that is that once again, they are not participating in the AI race because they don't have the infrastructure. They have some sort of distribution, but no one cares. They don't have the proper stuff, and now they are left behind. Now they are left behind, and it looks to me that they are in the same position as Shopify. Great tech, great app, but that's it. No exciting future for them because they can't participate at the scale of Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, and all of these guys.
But also, like, you saw what happened in Singapore, and I'm not talking about Grab,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there was a story, I think, in TechCrunch a couple of days ago about the founder of Bolt,
Okay.
where, like, in Europe,
Yeah.
Uber has this, like, massive war chest, I think was the story.
Yeah.
And the guy from, was he Lithuanian or something, right?
Yes.
Estonian? Oh, Estonian. Right. He just built Bolt and he was like, I'm going to focus on making sure that the drivers make more money. So, like, the defensible, we talked about this with Shopify as well, right? But, like, the defensible moat around Uber's business is what?
Yeah. Maybe the network, like they have a lot of cars. The brand as well. The brand is strong,
They do, but there's nothing stopping a
Yeah.
driver from signing up for Bolt and going, huh, I
and
can
that's the
have both
case.
apps. I can have two phones in my car. No one can
And
stop me from doing it.
and that's the
And over
case.
time, if I make more money from Bolt and I drive less because the commissions that I pay to Bolt are just lower than the ones that I pay to Uber, I'm just going to drive for Bolt.
Yep. Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. So no, it's no. Maybe they are just not doing well, and they don't have a big plan for the future. They don't have a big idea, on how they can participate in the AI race. They are just stay there. You are not coming with us, basically, in the boats. Yep.
But can I ask you another question?
Mm-hmm.
You and I, again, talking in the context of undercover media, we've spent a lot of time looking at these new agentic coding tools and
Yeah.
spent some time even before they changed the all-you-can-eat subscriptions to this kind of metered way of
Yeah.
thinking like, how is all this stuff going to impact us?
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, what these big companies are doing. Did they just like sign up for Claude Code and just be like, okay, everybody can have it, and we're not even gonna like model out what it's gonna cost us to do this? Like, it's shocking to me that the CFO said, "Uh-oh, we used all of our tokens, all of our token budget by the end of April." Do you know what I mean? Like, was there no organization, no meeting around like how this
So-
was going to work and how it was going to get rolled out? They're just like free food for everybody, kind of. Do you know what I mean? Because even we
So-
didn't do that.
So yeah, but there is a part of like you don't really know what you will need until you actually know what the tech can do for you. Like all the learning and test and learn phase is really, really, really time consuming, but also
This is true.
token consuming.
This is true. But like, shouldn't
Yeah,
you roll it out to like
yeah, like
5 people first, not
yeah,
105 people? Do you know what I
it's true.
mean?
Yeah,
Like, have
yeah,
a
no, it's
special
true. Yeah.
team that goes, okay, we think this is going to be important. We think it's going to have, drop to EBITDA. We think it's going to have a good ROI.
Mm,
But before we get there, let's not token max.
mm,
Let's just let 10 people inside the company in strategic places use this technology and see what the level of productivity change is.
mm,
And then as we understand not just how much more productive they are, but what it costs us for them to get to that level of productivity, then we'll start rolling it out more widely,
yeah, it's true.
which doesn't sound like what they did. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's true. You're right. You're right. You're right. But also, like, maybe actually, while you're saying that, like, maybe I had another idea, like something completely different.
Go
What
ahead.
if they are just saying that to put pressure on Anthropic and OpenAI to lower the price? What if they just say, you know what, guys, it's just too expensive? Because the real impact of this type of story is that the next guy who is about to sign up for Anthropic or for OpenAI now is going to double think it. Now it's going to be like, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm going to be in the same situation as Uber and Microsoft. It's going
Right,
to
right,
be
right.
way too expensive. I don't want my team to have problems because they become dependent on the tools, and then we have like such a massive cost. So now maybe the next time I meet with my Anthropic sales rep, I will have a few more questions around the pricing. You know, like how is that going to work? Can we implement it step by step, like just like you said? I think that's the real impact here. Like that's really like the potential next clients of these companies may be scared, and that's the best way to put pressure on them for price, right? Like if you really want them to keep the plan at $200 with all you can eat, or you want much more transparency on the token or stuff like that, you would do this type of thing. I would do that exactly. I would leak, some crazy stories about how much we spend. We don't have a budget anymore. We need to stop using AI and all of these things, because that's scary for the service providers.
There's got to be a better way to price this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In other words, okay, maybe the two, and because we know this stuff is subsidized. Like
Yes.
everybody says it. Even
Yeah.
the model companies say it's subsidized.
Yeah.
But let's say it's not. So if here's the thing though, I'm not convinced, and I'm going to keep saying this until somebody tells me I'm wrong or points out that they know the answer to this question. Is I don't think they know what a token costs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if they do know, let's say in the case that they do know, well, then they know where their profit is,
Yeah.
right? So they know if a token costs, let's just say I'm going to make something, I have no idea, but if a token costs $1
Mm-hmm.
and they're not charging $1.25 for it, then they're doing something wrong. If they're
Mm-hmm.
charging less than $1 or up to $1, then they're never going to make any money on it. But if they're charging $15 in the metered space as opposed to the kind of all you can eat space, the subscription space, that's also wrong. Now
Yes.
we could be, we always said like we're at early days, and maybe they haven't found the balance yet. But I don't think you're wrong when you suggest that maybe some of these big companies like, look, the pricing's wrong. We know the pricing's wrong. We're going to stop using it until you get the pricing right, or we're going to use it at
Exactly.
much smaller scale until you guys
Yeah.
get the pricing right and understand like what that pricing is. And then we're happy to come back in and buy whatever product you sell. But it can't be, you know what I mean? It can't be just market price. We joked around about this in the context of a restaurant, right? It can't just be like, we'll take 6 lobsters, but we have no idea how much dinner's going to cost. Like no one exists that way, right? But
No,
if
you're
they're
right.
like, you can spend up to $1,200 per person per month,
Mm-hmm.
and some people are going to spend less than that. We talked about this, right? There's going to be internal subsidies as well. In the case that, let's say they were charging us $1,200 per month, I'm not using it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be subsidizing you.
Yeah.
And in a big company, there's going to be a lot of that, right? Where there are some guys and gals that are going to use like all of it as much as they can. And some people that are just like, you know what? My job doesn't require me to write that much code, but I still have a license to use it. And I'm subsidizing the other guys that are using it. And I think at the end of the day, you're probably right. The pressure that this puts on these big companies by companies like Uber that want to use a lot of this technology is probably going to make them change or force them to change the way that they price this stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah. which means like we should say the same thing. Yes, it's way too expensive, we can't use it anymore. we have to we have to scale down everything because it's way too expensive. So then we can participate into getting the price lower, basically, which is good at the end of the day for us. But yeah, like, in a way, that's pretty much the only explanation that made sense to me. Because look, if you, as you said, if you roll out technology into your team, there is no way they just say, you know what, let's just spend as much as you want, and then we will see how it goes, right? So,
It makes no sense.
at the maximum, at the bare minimum, they have a hard cap per person. As you said, for example, just spend $1,000 per engineer, right? Uh,
Right.
and then let's see what we can do with that. Let's see how we can optimize that. And maybe they're not just happy with what they can get with $1,000. They want to increase, but it's too expensive. So they are saying that, look, guys, we can't use your tate anymore because it's too expensive. But that's because they want to use more, not because if they want to use less. They want to use more, but they don't have the budget for that. So they just say it's too expensive, right? And if there's enough people who say it's too expensive, maybe they hope that, Anthropic and OpenAI are going to say, okay, we get to find a better pricing model, which at the end of the day is great for everybody.
Yeah, and look, I think this goes both ways. So the one other thing that I think has to happen, and I don't think it's up to the CFO per se to do this, but maybe it's more up to the CTO, or maybe in combination, the CTO and the CFO need to work together to say, okay, look, we know this is going to make us more productive. But again, as I was suggesting earlier, instead of just like rolling this out willy-nilly to everybody, just say, okay, look, we've been testing this for the last 6 months or 4 months or whatever it is, right? We know it works. We feel like it's expensive. Let's pick a couple of high-profile things where we need this AI coding, and let's actually price out exactly what we think this is going to cost us. And let's be more efficient in the way we use these tools, right? Because again, now we know how to use them better.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It's almost like running the water in the sink while you're brushing your teeth. Like, I know it's a weird thing to say, but it's like, you don't need the water on when you're doing that. You just need it on to clean your toothbrush. And like, you have to be a little bit more efficient in the way you do this stuff, right? And I think if they get together and say, okay, your team is going to do this. Here's the budget that you have for this. Understand that only these 3 guys or whatever are going to get access to it, but the entire team gets the benefit. So it's not like these guys look like they're more productive, but actually go through and do the things you would do as just like a normal management team for any new tool. But this tool is different because of high usage rates lead to much higher costs, at least today. And in combination with that, do what you're suggesting and just go, we're going to put a ton of pressure on you. We're going to hold back all the other teams that we wanted to use this because it made them more productive. But because we have no control over cost, we're going to put pressure on you to lower those costs so then we can roll it out to more and more people. And I think those things in combination is more likely going to be the outcome of this. What do you think?
I think you summarized everything perfectly. That's what I think as well, which is great because I also want to spend less on my AI tokens. So I'm very happy if this is what's going on. But you see that here we start to set a lot of pressure on if we are right? If our analysis is right, and I really, really strongly believe that's the case, it means that between the Microsoft story yesterday, the Uber story that is an ongoing story, right? We start to see a lot of these big companies saying, hey, AI is too expensive, and the the Anthropic subscription price change is going to be into effect in June 15th, right? Yep. And if you remember what we said about that, I think last week, I was like, maybe they are just testing it. Maybe they are actually not going to implement it. And if there is enough backlash against the change, they are not going to actually enforce it. Because it's really weird to say we are going to change something in 1 month. That's something that they never do and never happens. They always say we are going to change something yesterday. So
right. We already changed it and we didn't tell you.
Exactly. That's what Anthropic does, and frankly, absolutely every model's provider. They never tell you we are going to change something in 1 month. So that's kind of like push towards this idea of, they are checking if the backlash is big enough or small enough, like what is the real loss, and then if it's big enough, they may revert, they may not do the change in the subscription, which would be perfect, right? So I still hope that this subscription chain is going to be cancelled, and this
So do
signals
I.
to me, and that signals to me that we are going in the right direction. So let's see.
Hopefully.
Ev-
Yeah,
Hopefully,
hopefully.
Uber makes much more noise, and maybe other companies join as well. But like when you lose Microsoft as a client, like that's big, huh? Especially when Microsoft owns like such a huge share of Anthropic, them saying you know what, it's too expensive, we're just gonna build our own tool. That's not good. Huh? That's really not good. Huh?
No, no.
This is not good. So here, Uber may be like one client of Anthropic, but Microsoft is a very different story. They are an investor, they are a client. They have a model, they have the infrastructure. So when those guys say we're gonna stop using your product, it's like it means a lot to me. So let's see. Let's see if this cloud subscription price change holds in 3 weeks. I hope. I hope we cancel it.
I hope so too. It is weird. Microsoft is a big investor in Anthropic and also a big investor in OpenAI.
Yes. We do both. Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
And they
Okay.
build their Copilot. How crazy is that?
Right. And they also build their own Copilot along with inside of GitHub. I just think, again, I feel like Microsoft dropped the ball here. I know we talked about this last night, but it's like before all this stuff was playing out, everybody was going to GitHub to write code, share code, find code, do code, smoke code, eat code, like whatever it was. They were just going to GitHub for it.
Yeah.
Microsoft owns GitHub, and they literally just could have embedded some sort of agentic AI coding tool into GitHub, and they just would have won this battle going away because everybody was going there anyway, right? Do you know what I mean?
They had Cursor. They were the first to add Cursor. Like really, like they were doing code completion with OpenAI in the very early days of GPT. They were the first one to do that super early. And I don't know what happened because I don't use GitHub that much, but I don't know how come they lost this battle, right? But yeah, you're right. They were first, and they had the right ideas. Plus, they have Azure, they have Copilot, they have so many stuff, right? They have so much stuff going on at Microsoft. That they are in such a great position. It's so weird that they don't take more advantage of it.
So I think this is just an indictment of the lack of agility at a company that's the size of Microsoft, which is weird, right? Because again, when you look at Salesforce, which is large, maybe not as large, but it's still a large company, made a decision internally. And I guess Mark Benioff has just more influence on the day-to-day running of that business because he was like, okay, everything has to be exposed APIs, API exposed and MCP compliant. And if we have to rewrite this whole thing from scratch, that's what we're going to do. But that's what Salesforce is going to be from now on. And Microsoft was like, I don't know what's going on over there at GitHub. Not really sure. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a completely different thing.
You're right. Like companies like Salesforce, they have done everything so fast, right? Like so fast. It's so impressive.
Agility. The agility there is really impressive as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. Cloudflare as well has launched like tons of new feature like for being like AI agents ready. But once again, like this is businesses where the win of the AI agent is pretty clear, right? Like there is like very obvious use cases that they can use and they can implement, and that's not really the case for Shopify or for Uber. There is not something like where you put an AI agent that helps the driver to do something. To do what, right? And or to help the guy who boot the driver to do what as well. There's no obvious use case where you can actually implement agent, transform your entire business, and then get massive market share, grow your company, show that to investors, make everybody happy, right? And that's why I always say that this feels to me that they are left behind because there is no these big use cases because they are not big enough. They don't have the infrastructure. There's so many things that they don't have to actually be able to have these use cases that could be transformational for them.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I'm sitting here. You can see me kind of like looking around, and I'm just trying to come up with some new functionality for Uber where the AI or agentic AI would come in really handy.
I don't see anything.
And again, for Salesforce, I understand it. You're right, because when we've talked about this a lot, the idea that now that the interface is built for agents as opposed to humans means that way more people can use it in a way that's way more efficient. I see them making way more money. But from an Uber perspective, like is it just car efficiency or car location optimization. I'm
It seems,
struggling to think off the
yeah,
top of my head, like where they would use this stuff that makes more sense, except for
mm,
writing code internally. And I
exactly.
guess in that sense, maybe the CTO is right. Maybe
Mm,
he's right when he says, like, I don't see how this is going to drop to the bottom line, because he's like, we don't really need this in a way
yeah,
that
exactly.
some other companies do.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
I don't
And
think you're wrong
and
either.
in this regards, in a way, Grab may be in a much better position to benefit from agentic coding because they are a
Tell me why.
super app. They do e-commerce, they do payments, they do all of this
Yeah,
extra
yeah, yeah.
stuff, right? So if tomorrow Amazon launch a commerce agent that works really, really, really well, right? Then I don't see why Grab couldn't launch it as well, right? They
Yeah.
are a marketplace as well. It's different type of marketplace, right? But because they do food delivery, because they do groceries delivery, because they have GrowPay, like, because they have like this super app and this massive
They have insurance as well, right?
ecosystem. They have insurance as well, because there is so much stuff going on in the app. If somebody found a use case for e-commerce for this type of marketplaces, and then Grab maybe like a massive winner because that's what they do, right? They have a part of them that's doing this, the same way Shopee, Lazada would be able to do that. So yeah, in a way, they have more chances to win in the AI space, the super apps.
Well, we did a whole segment.
Mm,
I mean, I did almost an entire show on Grab and
sure.
where they're implementing artificial intelligence on ATP
Mhm.
Insights. So for anybody who wants to listen to that, you can just search for that on our YouTube page. And yeah, I think they're way better positioned to be able to use artificial intelligence in a way that Uber isn't, because their business model is not as diversified as Grab's is, right? And that comes down to, like you said, because they're a super app, they're just better positioned to do this. They have way more stuff going on, and they can use the AI to make some kind of connectivity and data analysis around, if somebody does this, we can give them that. Like, there are a whole bunch of ways where they can use AI that maybe Uber simply can't. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be, I think, to me, like links to e-commerce, right? Like helping
Mhm.
you with groceries, helping you with delivery of something, like all these extra things that once again, like Uber doesn't do, right?
Mhm.
And they don't even need to think about I mean, they don't even need to find the use cases themselves, right? They can just wait for Amazon to do something, or Shopee to do something, like, or Alibaba to do something, and then they just copy basically what works into the big e-commerce marketplaces. It is going to translate very well into Grab because they can do the same thing. But Uber doesn't have that part of the business. They don't do grocery delivery. They don't have any e-commerce thing. They have Uber Eats. You can order food. Maybe that's a little thing, right? Like maybe they can implement something there. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like once again they are not big enough. They are not doing enough stuff.
Which is weird since it's
Yeah,
Uber, right? You
which
would
is
think that at some level there's
mm,
plenty of stuff that they're doing. Um, let's talk a little bit about IBM,
let's switch gears to IBM. Perfect.
right? Because I thought this was kind of interesting as well. So
Yes.
IBM, who's been, and I mean, a lot of companies have been doing this. They've been working on quantum computing for a long time, and quantum chips are just something that's really non-trivial and really hard to do.
Mhm.
Um, but apparently, IBM is spinning off their quantum chip factory into a new company called Anderon. I'd like to be involved in. I'd like to understand, like, who names these companies. Um, and Anderon will be America's first pure play quantum chip foundry, meaning it only makes quantum chips for anybody who wants them. And I think this is interesting. The US Department of Commerce announced 9 letters of intent as well
Okay.
on top of this, which I think is interesting in the context of just everything else that's going on in the United States, that somehow the Commerce Department has been focused and smart enough to say, we're going to use the CHIPS Act, the Chips and Science Incentives, aimed at accelerating US leadership in quantum computing. And they're going to give out $2 billion. And here's what's going on. The centerpiece for this whole thing is IBM's new standalone quantum foundry company. We already told this, Andron, and they're going to get $1 billion, apparently, from the US government. And IBM's also going to put $1 billion into it. So this company is going to start with $2 billion, along with all the IP and all the assets and all this other stuff, plus a whole group of people that already work there. That's going to be super interesting. And on top of this, I just want to put all this stuff into context as usual. There are other people involved. So Global Foundries, which is another brand new company, is going to receive $375 million to establish domestic quantum foundry capacity across multiple architectures. There's 7 other companies that are doing this,
Wow.
which is super cool. Like all the conversations that we have about what the US government is doing, particularly when it comes to science, has just been like, what are you doing? And here it feels like they're working really closely with industry to make sure that the US doesn't fall behind in the quantum space. And maybe it's because they're treating this like it's a national security thing. I don't know. I haven't spoken to anybody inside the government. But having the ability to be at the cutting edge of quantum, remember, we did an episode, I believe, in February or January of this year with a guy who spent the whole show talking just about quantum computing. And I think at some level, you know how we say that artificial intelligence and agentic AI and all this stuff is like akin to electricity. It's changing the way that we run the entire economy in a way that we haven't seen against, since the railroads were being built, essentially.
Yep.
Quantum itself can also be like a similar thing.
Yes.
Right? Because it's gonna, if you just think about it, like we've spoken about this. There are so many things that engineering teams want or think they can build. But even with the power and the throughput of technology that we have today, the level of compute, it's in some cases, it simply can't iterate fast enough. And the thing about quantum is it can do like 15,000 things at once.
Yes.
Right? It's not even like iterating. It's just parallel processing in a way that's not even possible. So if you just think about advanced materials or pharmaceuticals or energy or anything like that, this is not a bad thing to be involved in. Anyway, that's just kind of the background here. Sorry, go ahead, Martin.
Also, just AI. I mean, look,
yeah.
While you were speaking, I was doing some research about have they ever done anything with quantum and AI? And look, that's an article from yesterday, and apparently they have trained an AI model using IBM quantum computer. So maybe there's 2 sides to the story. The first thing is,
go ahead.
As you said, we want the leadership. We don't want to be left behind. We want to participate into the quantum development. Great. The second thing is we have a massive power shortage, chip shortage to build our AI, and we also want to be the leaders in AI. And the quantum chips can be used to train AI. Perfect. Let's just double down on them, because then now we have 2 use cases for them, right? And we have a need right now. And if it actually really works, if the quantum chip can actually be used for inference to train AI, as it looks like they just did, then that once again is a massive new competitor for the chips, and a super great new way to supply the demand that we have in AI, right? So maybe AI is going to fund the breakthrough in quantum, right? Like we've been working on it. We've been talking about quantum for plenty of years now, right? Like and they have never been a use case that has been for us, right? Like as the end consumer. Maybe AI will absolutely accelerate all of this and just finalize the product and make it work, and we're gonna see some AI chips on the market very soon, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the biggest problems that IBM was having, along with the other sort of potential manufacturers for the quantum chips, is just having them be stable.
Yeah.
Because you know this, right? Because you studied some of this, but it's like, it's not quantum nothing, it's quantum physics. Right? But the point is that, like, it's not easy to understand. Like, quantum is like a really interesting part of the physics, of physics mathematics, in that it's not like, I don't know how to say this because I'm not a physicist. Maybe we should have had the lady from a Freelancer on for this part of the episode, because she is in fact a physicist, which kind of intimidated me a little bit. It's hard to intimidate me. But the point is that, like, the chips themselves are not stable because of the quantum physics that's actually going on the chip.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that allows it to do so many things at once, right? But, and I'm just looking at this, they're not fully fault tolerant at the moment.
Okay.
But frankly, they've been able to build processors that are now, according to them, remarkably stable and remarkably reliable. And they've moved past a pure experimental phase. into a commercial era of like utility scale quantum computing. So we are close here, Martin. And I don't think you're wrong. If you combine what's going on, and remember, we always talk about like the limitations of compute and the impact on the things that people get to design.
Yeah, for sure. Which
And go
by
ahead.
the way, was such an interesting conversation that we had with the guy from, what was the name of the company? I don't remember. The coding company, like the coding language that they Nirafsha. It was so interesting, right? Like, because exactly what you just said. Once they could implement AI into the design of the hardware, and now all of a sudden a whole new
Yeah,
world
yeah, yeah.
has been open to them, right? And you just
Right.
don't know what you don't know, right? And the capabilities just explode, right? It was so cool.
Right. I mean,
So
that was the genesis of the entire
yeah,
conversation. You're talking about I just want to get the name of this guy. Where were we?
it was last week. Yeah, Viral Shah from Julia Hub.
Yeah, from Julia,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
From
They
Julia. Right. So
took on
they had
Wednesday.
built all this stuff and they've basically incorporated AI into their ability to do engineering on hardware products. And it just changed the game, right? Because
Change the
they
game
had all
entirely.
these ideas they were saying. I mean, that was one of the questions we asked them was like, does it make the ability to create products that maybe we could conceive of before but not functionally build? He was like, yeah, for sure. But then think about what quantum's going to add to that.
Exactly. So that's why
Right.
maybe it's just going to accelerate massively, right? Like the development into AI, sorry, into quantum. And when I see these numbers, that make me think about that, right? Like, if I try to solve the chip problem and I see IBM who has a solution, like, at least I will pay attention, right? At least I will pay attention. I will go to IBM and say, "Look, can we do AI on your chips? You think so? Great. Let's try, right? And let's take a bet, and let's try, because at the end of the day, $1 billion invested into this, or $2 billion in total, is really, really small compared to all the investment we have seen so far into AI, right? Like,
Oh my God.
OpenAI put $10 billion into Cerebras. They spend hundreds of millions in data centers and infrastructure, right? So 2 billion seems like a really, really tiny bet, right, compared to everything else. So maybe they're like, you know what, if that can give us the lead in quantum, and plus it can help us on the AI, sounds like a good deal for me.
Yeah. So one of the things that I always think about is I don't know why I'm so interested in this, but I'm super interested in like new materials.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why, but like there's got to be a better way to, and I think part of the reason why is because I've been flying all over the world for the past 30 years.
Okay.
And look, from getting on a lot of planes recently as well, like, why does it still take so long? No, but think about it. Think about this, Martin. We have been able to increase the throughput of a computer over the internet from a 56K modem
Yes.
to gigabit Ethernet in the last like 20 years.
Yes.
So someone's done some serious engineering work and some serious software work,
And
right?
hardware as well.
And hardware as well. But also quantum is physics, yeah?
Yes.
So they've been able to do some unbelievable work in the ability to control what's happening on a chip so that it's actually functionally commercial right now, according to IBM, which is why they've spun this out and they've created Andron.
Oh, wow.
And yet, has a jet engine really changed since like the 1970s? Like, are we flying that much faster? Like, why does it still take 14 hours to fly from New York to Tokyo? Or how many hours from, I don't know, because I haven't done this trip, but I know someone that has, from like Bangkok to Paris. Like, how long does it take?
Yeah,
And
it's a
why
lot,
does
though.
it still take so long? And if you can make the plane lighter but stronger, if you can make the turbine, so the jet engines, faster, like it would be so cool if you could fly literally from Bangkok to Paris in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
why is that not possible?
that would be life changing if you could do Bangkok to Paris in 3 hours, right? Or like this type of super long distance, much, much, much faster. It would be super great. Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. But that doesn't happen. But thankfully, in either the AI space or telcos or the internet that we get at home, we see much more innovation, right? And the last 20
Mhm.
years, everything has grown so much, and maybe we're gonna see the same in the AI space. I mean, it's not a maybe; it's a definitely. It's a definite yes. Things are definitely going to evolve, and we're going to see a lot of innovation. But once again, like I think this really shows us that we don't know who is going to be the winner in 10 years, right? And
No way.
this type of news where IBM may be entering the AI race as well at some point, right? With quantum chips, and maybe there would be other players as well. And but just I feel like every continent has its own quantum winner. Like I know that in Europe there's a lot of of research and development as well into quantum. I'm sure like in Asia the Chinese do something as well. So it looks like everybody is working on it like worldwide, right? So yeah, so that was once again, it puts a lot of pressure on the chips manufacturer, another potential competitor to the AI chip market, and this is really not clear who's gonna win in 5 years in the
No.
AI space, right?
Yeah. So
Pretty
I
nuts.
want to make a point here.
Hmm.
Remember, I said at the beginning of this that there were 7 additional recipients of this of this government money.
Yep.
I just want to from the Department of
Yes.
Commerce. I just want to make sure I have that right. Yes, the U.S. Department of Commerce has given out a ton of money to kind of promote this. But think about these companies: Atom Computing,
Okay.
D-Rack, D-Wave, Inflection with a Q, like because people are just running out of ways to spell stuff. Psi Quantum, Quantinium, and a company called Rigetti. These are all companies in the United States of America that are getting funding from the U.S. government to promote and expand quantum computing. So this idea, as you suggest, of like we don't know who's going to win, we don't even know who these companies are.
Yes.
You've never
Exactly.
heard of any of them.
Never heard
And
of
to be
them.
fair, before OpenAI invested in Cerebras, we'd never heard of them either,
Never. Never. Never.
right?
Never.
So the real question is not like we don't know who's going to win, but like the winner may be somebody we've never even heard of before,
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And I wouldn't want to be a chip manufacturer right now, like because it looks like you have competition, new competition coming every day from every angle, right? It looks like it's really crazy at the moment in this space to me.
Yeah, and what's the
Um,
deal? Again, big chip makers like Samsung,
mm,
and let's say Intel.
mm,
What are we doing in the quantum space?
yeah,
What are we doing in the GPU? Like, how come neither one of these come? Well, Samsung's different, but like Intel, did you just completely fall asleep at the wheel when you looked at like what was happening in the GPU space? You just gave that market to Nvidia?
yeah, no, it's true. Like Intel is really one company that we never talked about, right? Like,
Never. We talked about it a couple of nights ago because well, we talked about AMD in the
yeah,
CPU
yeah,
space, and actually we got a
yes,
little bit of blowback on one of our channels. Somebody actually wrote back to us and they were like, "Yeah, AMD is just like talking their own position." I disagree with them
hmm,
because this 1-to-1 ratio that what was her name? Lisa Liu, I think is her name.
the CEO,
The
right?
CEO of AMD was saying like you're going to need more controller chips, and those control chips are going to have to be CPUs, and we're going to be the maker of those. We're going to be the maker of last resort for those chips. So fair
Yes.
enough, yeah.
Yes, I mean, I think there is no question about like, are we going to need more chips, more AI, more data centers? I mean, that's not even a question, right? Like,
No,
it's an obvious big yes, but who is going to make them? Who is going to be the winner? Who is going to make the best chips? Who is going to get the most orders? Who is going to be able also to create the supply, right? This is really all pending questions, right? I wouldn't bet on Nvidia to still be the number one in 5 years. It looks
no.
very uncertain to me, and
Mm.
a big technology breakthrough like quantum could be right if it works and if it's really good. That could like change the entire market overnight. I mean, not overnight, but the day that they made the technology valuable commercially. Like I mean, they start to have orders and clients and really use
Right,
cases
right,
on
right.
this.
Yep,
This
yep.
is the day where everything could change, right? Like the same as when Chat GPT got released to the public, right?
Exactly.
So let's see how it goes. But I think it's going to be a very interesting space to follow. We should start inviting people from these companies on the show, Megan.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hello, Shani. How are you? Doing great. Thank you very much. Can you hear us and see us well? Everything's fine. Perfect. So let me add you to the live with us.
So Martin, this is exciting. Let's bring in our next guest. Yeah, let's bring in our guest, Shani.
Let's do it.
Hi.
Hello, Shani.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you as well. It's great to have you here.
Very happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, Martin, let me drive a little bit and we'll see you at the end of the show.
Enjoy. See you.
So Shani, thank you again so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Where are you based right now?
I'm in New York, in Manhattan.
Awesome. Haven't been in Manhattan in a while. You can hear in my voice I'm American, but I still haven't been in New York in such a long time. Look, again, I just want to thank you for doing this. We wanted to have you on. We spend a lot of time talking about AI, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about AI in healthcare. We wanted to have you on because we wanted to understand how enterprise AI agents are going to help healthcare organizations just automate a bunch of administrative work safely, securely, and at scale. And before we do that, before we get to that, maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about the important stuff that Stack AI is actually doing.
Yeah, so let me start by saying that Stack AI is a platform, an AI orchestration platform to build agentic AI for enterprises. We work mainly with regulated industries, so banks, insurance companies, and one of our largest verticals is healthcare. We work from medium-sized to very large corporates in healthcare. On the provider side, the payer side, and also medical device and pharma. These are two guys that are MIT PhDs. I also graduated from MIT, and that's how I got to know them.
Yeah. Didn't you also go to Tel Aviv University?
I did, yeah.
So no slacking off there either. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just collecting degrees at this point, you know.
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would say in general, the healthcare space right now, if we're talking about the journey to full automation of systems, we're currently at level 0, 1, or 2.
So I was going to ask you that. Where do you think we really are? Like, I would say, and do you think it's different in healthcare than it is in banking? I mean, you may not be connected as much to banking, but still, if it's 1 or 2, I presume you're saying out of 10, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you think it's any different anywhere else?
Full automation, right? I would say the banking industries or the finance in general, they were quicker to adopt AI solutions. So I would say they're more towards the 4 or 5 versus healthcare industries. I would say the provider side, the clinics, the hospitals are more on level 1, which is more the administrative workflows, the back office automation. And on the payer side, the claims processing, they're more heavy on data. They have a lot of data infrastructure. And so they're more on the level 2/3 in terms of the automation. So this is what we see in the market right now. Medical device and pharma are still like on the level 1, 2, I would say. Both clinical research and then the administrative workflows, the compliance, the FDA approvals. These are where the areas where they see more ROI. And so this is the starting point.
So if that is the case, I want to make a statement, actually, if you don't mind. And I think it actually fits in perfectly because my brother, until he retired, was a neurosurgeon. So he was in the healthcare field. And I worked at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, which you would consider in the finance field. So there's a really good separation here. And one of the things I used to say to my brother was like, I'm so much more proud of you because when you, like, in your line of work, people can die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they really can. And all joking aside, but like if I do something wrong, like just a bunch of 0s and 1s getting mucked up, like nobody really cares and nobody can die. And is that part of the reason why you think that the implementation in finance has been so much faster? Because they're just like, I don't know, no one's going to die. But in the healthcare field, whether it's neurosurgery or knee surgery, it doesn't really matter, right? people's lives can literally be affected in a nanosecond. Is that part of the reason why you think the adoption is slower?
Yeah, absolutely. This industry is more risk averse, but also I would say they're more reluctant to adopt AI solutions. The work there is very manual at this point because of how the healthcare system in the US is built. There's a lot of administrative workflows, and they're very fearful of what happens if the AI makes a mistake. So they put a lot of guardrails in introducing the solutions. One of the first solutions that were introduced into the healthcare space was scribing. So companies like Nuance Communications and Abridge to just literally take the things that happen in a encounter between a physician and a patient and
Right.
scribe them. That's it. So
But you say that's it. I'm so glad you brought this up, actually, because you reminded me of something. Do you mind? We have another show that we call ATP Insights. It's about Asia. So this show is about global and about the US, but we do a similar show focused on Asia. And one of the guys that we spoke to in Australia is running an entire business on scribing, which I did not know was a thing. But this is a great way to kind of jumpstart implementation for artificial intelligence and even agentic AI inside of the healthcare industry, because it's a clear, obvious use case, right? Because if you can scribe in real time and then save that data to the cloud so everybody can have access to it almost in an immediate way. Sorry, I'm a little excited about it. That seems like a great use case for this stuff, no?
yes, definitely. This is a great use case for several reasons.
Go.
One is the time of the physician. We call this pajama time because after the encounters happen, the doctors have to go and scribe and summarize all the patient records and update their EHR system. This is the electronic health record systems
Right.
that they use. So this is one reason. So literally just the hours that are saved. The second reason is the interaction between the patient and the physician. So
Sure.
we want to have a person to look in the eyes instead of like being in the notes, and have a patient that is engaged and listening to what is happening. And then there is
Right.
also a third reason in the US. So the way that it works, they have to write specific codes in order to bill for the payer, the insurance company.
There's a word for this. What are those codes called? I forget.
So there's ICD codes, there's
Thank
CPT
you.
codes, there are
CPT.
different
Yep.
elements of that space. But once you do the scribing, you get a fuller documentation of what happened in the encounter, so that you can bill a little bit more. So it also affects the bottom line, the revenue at the end of the day. So these are, I would say, the main three reasons why the scribing tools have become more successful. Also, in terms of the risk that they bear, is just a
Sure.
lower risk. The doctor has to sign off on any of these summaries anyways. So yeah, these are the reasons why scribing became so popular very early on. One of the first use cases for agentic AI.
How closely, and I'm just learning the new terminology, so if I'm using it incorrectly, please forgive me. But how closely together are the providers working with the payers to try to find places, at least initial places, where AI can actually be used? And maybe you can cover that first, because then I've got a follow-up, if that's okay. Like, how close are they working together to say, like, we both know that there are efficiency gains to be had here. Where can we kind of find the first one so that we can fan it out into sort of the larger healthcare ecosystem?
Yeah, so to answer that question, I will start by the main difference between the US healthcare system and other systems in the world. Is in other healthcare systems, it's a centralized system. It means that the provider and the payer are basically the same entity.
Yep.
I'm originally from Israel, so
Yep.
in Israel there are 4 large HMOs, both function as the payer and the provider. So the
It's
clinics
a pretty good healthcare system in Israel, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And so the incentive system aligns. It means that both the payer and the provider have an incentive to lower the costs, to have a healthier patient at the end of the day that will lead to lower costs. So preventative medication and other in the US healthcare system, these are two separated entities that have a conflicting set of interests. So the clinics want to bill more and the payer want to pay less. So there are several mechanisms, for example, prior authorization. So you have to approve a procedure in front of the payer before it even happens. So all of this process takes a tremendous amount of time and effort. You have to prepare a packet. You have to call the pair, physically call, and make sure that the billing codes align. You have to wait for 30 days until they answer for most of the procedures. Some of them take shorter amount of time, but most of them take like 30 days. And then you
Wow.
get an answer if it's approved or denied. If it's denied, you have to submit an appeal letter. So all of this process takes a lot of time and effort because of this conflicting set of interests. But this is where it presents an opportunity for agentic AI to automate some of these workflows. But then also the pair comes with a set of agentic AI workflows to either approve or deny. So at the end of the day, it becomes the war of two agentic AI systems that have conflicting incentives at the end of the day. So yeah, that's kind of like a meta world that will happen in I don't know 5 or 6 years from now, or even less.
Hopefully,
Where we see,
hopefully sooner. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but it really does feel like to me for someone. So you're originally from Israel. I'm originally from the United States, but I haven't lived in the US in 30 something years, right? So my view on this is going to be different than for somebody who actually lives in the country and actually exists inside of this healthcare system. But it feels to me, and this is not a Stack AI problem at all,
yeah,
but it feels to me like there needs to be a little bit of an overhaul of that system. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole with you today, but
yeah.
let me ask you this. What has to happen, right? So that before this 5 or 6 year time frame that you were talking about, that agentic AI can actually find more than one or two roles inside of the healthcare ecosystem so that this tension between the payers and the providers is minimized, and that the healthcare system itself can actually use the most modern technology, not medical technology, but just like admin technology or efficiency technology to be able to provide better care to people, right? Because I guess at the end of the day, that's the thing that you're trying to affect, particularly if we talk about it in the context of scribing. That's one of the reasons why they want to do it, because it allows doctors to provide much better care, much more efficient care. But what else has to happen so that this tension disappears and that this AI can actually be implemented in a way that makes the healthcare system more efficient and more effective?
Yeah, I do not have the answer for that, and many others that try to solve this problem. I would say try different mechanisms. For example, value-based care, where the incentive from the payer comes from providing better care for patients. So the clinics are measured on performance, or the overall benefit, like a treatment plan for the patient, rather than just specific billing codes.
Yep.
But it hasn't been this effective. We see that it has been introduced, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago. We still don't see much of a difference. However, I will say that the introduction of agentic AI to both systems, even if they're separated, that makes the time slots, I would say, shorter. Okay,
Yeah, it should, right?
so instead of 4 hours preparing the prioritization package, this takes 10, 15 minutes. So it does shorten the timelines. And this overall, timeline provides better care at the end of the day, because the patient doesn't have to wait 30 days for a complicated procedure. They will have to wait just like a few days. So I would say even introducing agentic AI to these systems separately helps improve the overall patient care.
That makes sense. What should the leadership of some of these healthcare companies understand before they move from like a pilot program to production grade enterprise agentic AI? Do you know what I mean? Because from a healthcare standpoint, they understand this like inside and out. But from an agentic AI standpoint, they're probably still on the newbie side of this stuff, right? So what kind of things do they need to understand before they go full implementation?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when I'm talking to customers, I get these considerations all the time. So let's start with the top level, which is the strategy level.
Yep.
So how do I structure a system that is governed, that I have observability, to build agentic AI swarms that will help my staff improve their efficiency? That's, I would say, on level one. And usually that comes top down. We see that if we talk to people on the front line workers, the nurses, they're very very anti-AI for the reason that they're saying, okay, you're going to save me all of this time now. What am I going to do with all the time that is left? And
Right.
if you are going to introduce these systems now, what is going to happen a year from now? Am I going to lose my job? So usually we see the top-down approach working a little bit better. You have to get the buy-in from the frontline workers too. They need to understand that this is going to be the world very soon, and either they get on the AI train or they're out. And then the second is more the tactical level of build versus buy, right? How do I even introduce these systems into my healthcare organization? And some of them go to the more, build approach, and they start giving cloud subscriptions to some of their workers in order to experiment with some of these AI workflows. And we see in that sense that many times in these organizations, the outcome is unpredictable or not consistent and not scalable. You can take this process and basically multiply it. But for personal use, usually it's great, like for emails or, there's a
Sure.
term, yeah, there's a term in healthcare that is called inboxology. Okay, there's a person and there's a person that this is their job, inboxologist,
I love it.
that is answering the emails of the doctor to refill prescriptions or to schedule appointments. And so AI can take over that pretty easily. It's like very structured and rule based. But when you go to a full workflow where you have, for example, clinical operations, or all of the patient intake or patient communication, this is where it becomes a little bit more risky. And this is where AI systems and platforms come in to play and introduce a more structured, scalable way to deploy agentic AI.
Yeah. Look, I want to make a case for the nurses. I'd love to have a conversation with like an entire
Yeah.
industry-wide group of nurses. So one of the things that you brought up was, what are they going to do with all this extra time?
Mhm.
And just based on my own experience, I'm not a nurse, but I was in a situation where artificial intelligence came in and helped me do a whole bunch of my job for me.
Mhm.
And that the extra time got filled two ways actually at scale. One was, and if there are any nurses out there listening to this, please feel free to comment, because I think the experience is going to be similar, if not exactly the same. The first is, it allowed me to give my customers way better service, which means that it allowed nurses to give patients way better service, because they'll have more time to do customer service or patient service than they would otherwise, because they're not doing administrative tasks. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it allowed us to do way more business. Now, it's harder to create an extra hospital room or a hospital bed than it is to create like another equity trade, because that's on the margin. Creating an extra equity trade, I don't need more space. I just need a faster computer. But the point is, we did 5 times more business when we implemented, I'll call it sort of primitive artificial intelligence, and nobody got fired. And I think that that's part of the conversation that needs to be had with healthcare workers as well, in the sense that if you have more time, your patients will love you way more, because you'll be able to spend a lot more time on them. You mentioned this idea of integration. Every time a new system goes into operation, and I'm thinking about this from a finance standpoint, right? It's so hard to integrate this stuff because all this sort of downstream dependencies are hard. How hard is it from a healthcare perspective to integrate new agentic AI systems into whatever the healthcare operating system is? Like, how hard is that to do?
So I will start by saying there is no healthcare operating
I
system
know
that
that.
is
I know
unified.
that. There should be somebody.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, go build that. But if I know there's not, but you understand what I mean. Every hospital has
Yes.
like maybe 6 or 7 of the same sort of software packages inside of them. But to then implement, and they may be from different providers, but then to implement agentic AI on top of that in a way that's even semi-autonomous, how hard is that to integrate?
Yeah, I would say the larger the healthcare system, the harder it is to come and integrate into their processes and to their systems.
Right.
One of the reasons is the IT barriers, risk assessment, and infosecs. This takes months, if not like overall like a year to introduce a new system into a healthcare organization that is very large. Now we're working with Mayo Clinic, for example. It took months to go through the entire infosec processes. We had to do multiple meetings with their IT department to show the architecture of the system, etc. So this is like a technical barrier more. But in terms of the systems, when we're talking about medium to large size healthcare organizations, it's relatively easy. Once you have a set of software products that have an API, or even if they don't have an API, nowadays we have computer use agents and RPA that can basically log in on your behalf and take the information that is required. So I would say technically that's not a barrier at all. And we see that all the time. We sign a contract and the next week we come in and we introduce Tech AI into the health system, and we get the ROI even from the first month by automating these processes. The barriers are more strategical and guardrails. So you want to make sure that you have human in the loop mechanisms that approve the outcomes of the AI process. And then also, if you're directly talking to patients, you want to make sure that the answers that our providers provided are accurate and based on the information that you take from the knowledge bases from the healthcare organization. But also, just in general, there are general AI guardrails. For example, don't provide like notes about suicide or toxic content. So there is the healthcare side, the accuracy, and then just general guardrails of AI.
I feel like there are just so many landmines here. How do you work? I mean, and it's no one's fault, right? It's just that it's so complicated and complex. How should healthcare organizations, or how do you help them decide like which workflows are ready for AI agents and which workflows aren't? And I guess part of the reason why I ask this is because when you do the first install or first implementation, you want to make sure it has like the most impact, but it's also the safest. Am I right here? So how do you decide like where to actually go do this with them when a healthcare provider finally decides, whether it's a payer or a provider, finally decides like, we want to do this. We know we need to have agentic AI. We're getting pressure from the C-suite to do this. Where should we start? Because if we start in a place where it doesn't work properly or it doesn't work in the most efficient way, then it's going to be hard to expand. Do you know what I mean? So where's the best place to start, and how do you figure that out inside of these different organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. And to this point, we're working with over like 200 customers. So we've done this process many times of coming in, implementing the platform.
Yep.
First, I will start maybe a step earlier in the calls that we do with the customers. We usually people come like the executives and they're like, can you send me the list of all the use cases that you have so that we know what's possible? And I would say that's maybe the wrong way to look at it. You should start by mapping out the workflows that you have in your organization that are super manual and understand if AI is the best solution for that. Maybe there's a simpler rule-based automation that you can introduce and that will improve some of your processes without introducing the reasoning or LLMs, and maybe that's not really necessary. But once you map out these workflows, there comes in our kind of like FDE model for a deployed engineer that sits with the customer and maps out these processes. So we usually put it on a metrics, the ROI versus the complexity, okay? And we place all the different options on that metrics. And surprisingly, we tend to start not with the highest ROI, highest complexity. We start with left quadrant or of the lowest complexity first, even if it's a lower ROI. And the reason is that people are not used to AI systems. They want to gain trust. And usually we start, even if it's a very complex workflow, we start by breaking down the workflow into smaller pieces and automate just some of them. Okay. And until the humans that are interacting with the agent, they trust the outputs to be reliable and consistent. And then we move towards more automation. So I would say even if the ROI is high and it's shiny, and this is what we used to do in the beginning at Stack AI, we used to go all in and say, okay, this is your most complex workflow and highest ROI. Let's just take a stab at that and start with that workflow. And we saw that it was not helpful at all. Okay, you want to break down into smaller, simpler building
Makes
blocks
sense.
and start with them. Yeah.
Do you see, and we talk about this in other vertical industries as well, but in healthcare, do you see once these things get implemented, and I guess this is with the customers that are more sophisticated in their implementation style, do you see them changing workflows as well? In other words, they have an existing workflow, they try to attach or use agentic AI to kind of make it more efficient, and then they realize, wait a second, we can actually do a workflow in a completely different way because the agent allows us to do this. And while we've had this workflow for 10 years or however long, we can still get we can get a better or the same outcome if we change the workflow using the agentic AI. Are you seeing that happen as well?
That's a really great question. Like, would you take an AI agent and just imitate the human process? Or
Right.
maybe the AI agent can do the things or do the workflow in a better, more efficient way. I think
Yeah.
the perfect example for that is call centers. Okay.
Go
So
ahead.
you
Yeah.
have basically a call center of people calling the pair, the provider is calling the pair to ask about billing codes and about the, if they change their policy. So what a lot of companies did is that they open a call center or a service that uses agentic AI or voice agent to call the pair in order to get that information. Instead of building a system that is like an online digitized way to get this information from the pair. So yeah, definitely I would say because this system is so traditional and
Right.
because it's so fragmented, I would say healthcare organizations are not likely to change their workflows. However, they are trying to implement agentic AI to imitate the human process. But we see more in digital healthcare. We have customers like LifeMD and others that are more in the telehealth, virtual care space.
Right.
They're changing their processes. We see
For
them
sure.
basically taking an entire compliance workflow and changing that into an agentic AI completely instead of imitating the human processes. So it really depends, but healthcare systems are just not that flexible in their way of working. Not just because of them; it's not their fault. It's the entire ecosystem of services that they get that is still working in a specific way, and they have to comply with that way.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine situations where a specific workflow was built, even if it's not as efficient as it might be, because it needs to interact with an external third party.
Exactly.
And that if you change that using agentic AI, even if internally it's way more efficient, the third party is going to be like, "What are you doing over there?" kind of thing. And why did you change this without letting us know? And again, to work together with them to change it requires a level of complexity that maybe everybody's not ready for. How do you, or at what level do you work with your customers on governance, right? Because again, AI is just a completely, particularly agentic AI, is a completely new thing for them. How do you work with them on the governance side of this, or like what an agent should be allowed to do, to what it should have access, who should have control over that agent? How do you work with the governance side of this stuff as well?
Yeah. So when you're deploying individual workflows on Claude, it's very hard to govern and maintain and do AI evaluations and others. Specifically in Stack AI, and I would say like if you want to deploy agentic AI, you have to have some sort of analytics, observability, visibility on the agents that are deployed in your organization. In Stack AI,
Yep.
we provide that like because we're working with regulated industries, we provide that in-house. So we have an entire tab of governance where you can see all of the agents that are deployed in your org. You can see the inputs, the outputs, what are the different steps that the agent took for each one of the runs. You have logs, you can create analytics. So this is one side. And we work with the customers in order to understand what is important to them. Is it the speed? Is it the accuracy? What are the KPIs that they're measuring? I come from a product management background, so that's kind of like my bread and butter of setting what are the KPIs and what is the evaluation that they need. And also for each one of these agents, you can create AI graders for the politeness or the accuracy. You can provide expected results like a CSV of here is what I wanted to insert into the agent and here's what I expected to see, and see if the agent or the workflow produced the same result. And this is basically the AI evaluation side of it, on top of the AI governance, which is the analytics and logs. So It comes down to the question, how is the AI agent performing, and how do you monitor it later and test it?
So this is the other question. Is how does senior leadership meant to measure, whether the agents are actually providing a level of service that is actually improving their operations at scale? What are those KPIs that you're talking about? Is it, because it can't just be like, oh, it costs less. Like, is it faster? Are there fewer errors? Like, how do you measure that?
It really depends on the workflow that you're building, and the end goal of the introducing of the agentic AI workflow. So some of these workflows are meant to provide a better or faster service. So, for example, the time that it takes to answer a patient went down from 15 minutes to 12 seconds. Okay, it gets like immediate answer. Some of them are more on the claims processing and the billing side. So you want to make sure you have less denials from the pair, or you have a faster time to create the appeal letter and the prior authorization packets. And some of these are more about having better knowledge to the staff. There are also a lot of AI agents that are HR related, so knowledge bases for the staff to answer questions. So there are different KPIs that are dependent on the AI agent. Some of them are more on the shiny side, like predictive AI models that have, this is not what we do as tech AI. We do unsexy AI. We do the the ones that are not shiny. But radiology prediction AI models take all of these scans and produce an output of diagnostic that is recommended. So in that case, it's more on the clinical side and making sure that you're accurate in several KPIs that you set. So it really depends on the AI agent. Same as a human, okay? You would measure different humans based on their functionality and the KPIs that are assigned to them or their department.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are getting to a point. We're not there yet, but I think we are going to get to a point where we will evaluate the efficacy and the efficiency of agentic AI in the same way that we evaluate humans. Okay, Shani, look, I really want to thank you for spending so much time with us and for being so generous with your insights and your time. Thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it was great being here. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Okay, that's it for AGTP Daily. Thank you again to Shani for coming on and joining us today. Thank you all that have been listening in real time. Thank you again for joining us as well. Give us a thumbs up on today's video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us out. And follow us on all of our socials, on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. And as always, let us know in the comments if you have any questions for us. We'd be happy to answer them. I do spend some time every day looking through questions and answering them. And also, if there's anything else you'd like us to cover that we haven't covered yet, we will be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Thank you again to Martin for all the amazing stuff and all the amazing insights that he gives us as well. My name is Michael Waits. Bye for now.